What's going on, guys? You're listening to episode 6 of the Point NHL Recap Show. I'm Pascal Pryor, joined by Mark Howlerlack. Mark, how are you doing tonight, buddy?
Pretty good, buddy. Honestly, the Habs, like I said, regression was coming. I was watching their game last night, not too good against Tampa Bay. But I mean, just hanging out here, just waiting. I'm kind of pumped to watch this Leafs-Sens game tonight. I don't know about you. I just kind of want to see a Battle of Ontario. I think that's going to be pretty cool. So, I mean, just got home from work, just hanging out, but pretty excited to record this and watch some hockey tonight.
So I think, first of all, we got to get into some trades that happened earlier today. It's early on in the season, but GMs, they're doing their part to get paid. Calen Addison, he was traded to the San Jose Sharks for Adam Raska and a 2026 fifth-round pick. A couple hours later, Zach Bogosian was traded to Minnesota for a 2025 seventh-round pick. Not too big of a trades, but what are your thoughts on what Minnesota was doing here? Because it really was, at the end of the day, Minnesota sending out a defenseman and bringing in another one.
Yeah, so I mean, I think like Calen Addison, he was drafted by Pittsburgh, I think, a couple of years ago, and he was involved in the Jason Zucker trade that brought him over. So, I mean, he's been a pretty decent prospect for them for a while. He's kind of just like your typical defenseman that's like really skilled offensively and runs the power play. He wasn't really getting a lot of playing time in Minnesota, to be honest. He was playing like under 15 minutes a night, but he put up like almost 30 points last year, though. So, I don't know. I'm not really that surprised by this just because of like how little his ice time is, you know what I mean? And considering how good of like a point producing defenseman he is, I kind of had a feeling like something's off about his game. Like he's not really great defensively. And I guess Minnesota's got Brock Faber now, right? Who's looking really good.
Yeah.
So it's like, I don't think Addison's really got that shot to be in the top 4 on Minnesota anymore. So I think like San Jose, that makes a lot of sense for them, right? Like, man, he's probably their best defenseman, to be quite honest with you. Like coming in, you know what I mean? He's gonna be running the power play. Like this is no risk for the Sharks at all. Kind of surprised the pick wasn't a little bit better, though, considering he's young, he's got potential, like he produced at the NHL level. I think it's a really good trade for San Jose, but I mean, them going again, Bogosian, it makes sense. It seems like they just wanted to go a different route, right? Like bringing a little bit more nastiness back there. They got a couple injuries right now, too, in Spurgeon and Goligoski, so like he's going to play. But I mean, I guess some nice work from Minnesota, and San Jose gets a pretty good defenseman considering what their decor is looking like now.
Yeah, I think you nailed it on the head there with the Brock Faber stuff. Now that Minnesota's Brock Faber and how good he's looked so far this season, Calen Addison just wasn't getting that opportunity in Minnesota. And why not trade him out and bring in a defenseman that is going to sort of help out the team a bit more with Zach Bogosian? I think it's a great trade for, honestly, both sides. I don't really think anybody lost this trade. It worked out just as well for each team.
Tampa just didn't want him, though. I guess was the weird thing to me. Like, I don't know. Like, he was on waivers earlier this year, right? After camp. So, I mean, they could have had him for free, but I guess it didn't really make sense at the time. They probably have too many players in their team. But I don't know. Maybe Tampa's just, like, clearing up a roster spot, and, like, I'm sure they're going to go out and get someone.
Oh, for sure. It's Tampa. They always go out and get somebody. I think we should move on, though, into a Canadian team. This team, of course, they've had a lot of issues to start the season. So let's go over and bring in Ryan Farwell to talk about the Edmonton Oilers. Man, they are not looking good right now. Jack Campbell, he's cleared waivers earlier today. He was sent down to the AHL Bakersfield pretty much just to find his game. It's the second time now in 2 years that he's been sent down. Farzy, we'll throw it to you now, buddy. Do you like this move, sending him down right now?
They got to shake up the room in some way, especially the goaltending. It falls a lot on them, but the team starts from the back and works the way out. So as I said, they got to shake it up, kind of find a way to jolt that lineup. And it's not solely on Woodcroft as to what is going on. Just it's that matter of you need to find the legs in the lineup. And because he can't bench everybody and send everybody down, one's got to be the scapegoat.
So let me ask you, do you want to see Jack Campbell back in an Oilers jersey, or do you want to see Ken Holland try to figure out a trade early on here?
A trade early on would be ideal. I took down a note. I remember last year, I said something along the lines of, the Oilers are my favorite team. I'm no longer going to let this kind of dictate my happiness or anger at times of the year. So whatever happens, I'm going to support the team because that's what you're supposed to do as a fan. But you also expect them to be a professional athlete and perform at such a level to at least offer some type of success. And Jack Campbell, and albeit I have to admit, Stuart Skinner has been the same. So yeah, I would like to see a trade happen personally. I think you got to try to find a way to get some new legs in the crease. But with the cap situation, they've got, after checking Cap Friendly earlier today, about $380,000 in free cap. So to move a $5 million goalie is not a simple thing.
Yeah, especially in today's NHL, how the cap is this season. Like next season with the cap going up, of course, it's going to be easier maybe to dump that contract. Plus, he'll be on year 3 as well, so it won't be as much term. But honestly, dude, if I was the Oilers, I'd be doing everything I can right now to get rid of Jack Campbell's contract and bring in another goaltender. Because even like Calvin Pickard, bringing him up, I don't think he's the option. Like when you look at the Edmonton Oilers team right now, I don't think they have any option going into playoffs for all 3 of their goalies right now that they're given looks. Mark, we'll go to you. Like who would you target on a trade?
I mean, like, there's a couple different guys out there that I think like would be available. A lot of teams are running with 3 goalies right now. I was talking to Farzy earlier in the day. I really wonder if they target one of Montreal's goalies and like Jake Allen or like Sam Montembeault. Montembeault is only making $1 million just for the rest of this year. So I feel like he could definitely be an option. I'd be really interested to see them go after a guy like Carter Hart if he gets like healthy soon enough. I mean, if you could get Philly to take on that contract and like you're sending Hart's back, like the money would definitely work. But then that's like a really big asking price though, right? Like you're talking about a 1st-round pick plus probably a really good prospect as just like a sweetener to take on his contract, right? And you're already at the bottom of the league right now. So you got to start talking about it being like top 10 protected. Those are a couple guys out there I see. I just don't think that they can go after a guy that's like kind of unexperienced at this point though. Like I just don't really see how it makes a difference for their team. Like, you know what I mean? Then you're just kind of taking a risk on a guy that's not proven, and you may as well just like look to the minors and Olivier Rodrigue, give him a chance if you're going to bring in a guy who's kind of like unexperienced in the NHL. You know what I mean? Because like we've seen, any goalie can kind of get hot.
Yeah, Jordan Binnington did it when St. Louis won the cup. He came in from the
that's
ECHL
the guy apparently
too.
they're interested in, dude.
I mean, St. Louis is looking to go in sort of a rebuilding direction, so
He's playing really well this year, though.
could
to
see
be quite
that.
honest with you, like he's been pretty good.
Farzy, who do you want to see if they go out the trade wise?
So if they go trade wise, I think one of the most likely teams to be comfortable with giving up a goalie is the Islanders. You've got Sorokin, who's pretty proven as a perennial starter. I'm thinking Semyon Varlamov might be available. And sure, his age is a little bit up there. He's older than Campbell, but he's been around some really good teams and he's got that experience in the crease on how to be a great goalie.
Yeah, I've seen his name thrown around a bit. The other one I was seeing was Marc-Andre Fleury, but with that's a pretty big cap situation that you're going to be bringing yourselves into. So I don't know what the logistics would work with that. Early on in the season, though, in Oilers Nation, have you guys sort of lowered your expectations for this season? Because going into this season, it was really cup or bust year. Has that been lowered, or is it still cup or bust for you guys?
With the amount of success that the team has not found this year, I'm going to say those expectations are the exact same. And the reason being is that team is crumbling and crumbling fast. So they know that both the market locally and the market internationally is expecting them to be the Western Conference champions.
Well, like at the beginning of the season, it looked like that. Me and Mark were talking about just their goaltenders. We didn't know how much we trusted in that. It's been exactly that issue. It's been forever that we've really been talking about this with the Oilers. We go back to the Peter Chiarelli days, and this was an issue back then as well. I have no clue what they got to do to figure this out. All around, it's an ugly situation. So Calvin Pickard.
Oh, you go for it first because I'm gonna change the subject. So talk about Pickard.
So Calvin Pickard, I don't know much about him, honestly. Farzy, you being the Oilers fan, what should we expect to see from him?
To be honest, I haven't kept a close eye on Bakersfield this year. I should, but I was hoping for a greater level of success at the top tier level. Of course, when you got McDavid and Draisaitl both returning, you'd expect that. But as for Calvin Pickard, I am very worried that we're going to see the exact same thing. I know Mark and I were joking around earlier today that Skinner's going to start a game, allow 4 goals in the first period. You're going to bring in Pickard, and what's he going to do in the second period? The exact same 4 goals in a single period.
I wouldn't really expect much different, to be honest. Like, it's like, I don't really know if Pickard's better than Campbell. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I would have preferred to bring up Rodrigue, man. He's a younger guy. He's never really played in the NHL. We've seen instances in this league where goalies come up when they've never played and players can't figure them out. You don't really need a guy like the Oilers right now need like it doesn't really matter if this goaltending solution is long term, in my opinion. They need to figure it out for this season. It doesn't matter if the guy's on the last year of his contract. It doesn't matter if Rodrigue comes up and gets hot and then never plays in the NHL again. Like we're talking about, like getting rid of Campbell and the cap going up. The cap's not going up till next year. This team, we're worrying about McDavid and Draisaitl winning. Their contracts are ending soon. We can't just wait until, okay, maybe we can buy out Campbell at the end of the year. I don't really think that's like, they can even think about that right now. I think they got to do whatever they can to move him, a trade that makes sense. And if not, I feel like you just got to bring up Rodrigue and just give it a shot. Like, is it really going to be that much worse than what they're getting?
It can't be worse than what they're getting right now. Like, when you look at the goaltending situation they're getting right now, it's bottom of the league for a team that should be top of the league. They can't keep on going.
It's been like like we knew Campbell wasn't great because of last year, and obviously his numbers didn't end up being that good, but it's been even worse. And like Skinner's just been like, I like he was great during the season last year. His playoffs were kind of shaky, and it feels like he just hasn't like rebounded since that. Like, I don't know, like that Vegas series, he was pulled a couple times. He didn't look that great. I don't know if that's just like still screwing with his confidence or like. And as much as it's like we're going on about the goalies, like there's other problems this team's having too, right? It's not just they're not getting saves. It's probably the biggest problem, but it's not the only problem.
Well, their defense hasn't been great either to start the season. Like, that Darnell Nurse contract we talked about a couple times, Mark, that like he's so overpaid. So when you have Jack Campbell on like those 2 players making $14 million, like that shouldn't be a thing, right?
No, because it's like Farzy, imagine what Edmonton could do with $14 million. Like, and you got to get another goalie. You got to get, I don't know, like I'd be more happier paying Nurse between like 5 and 6.
We'd be very comfortable in that range. And
like, you know what I mean? It's not that he's not an NHL defenseman. It's that he's overpaid and he shouldn't be playing as many minutes as he does. With Jack Campbell, it's like he makes $5 million and like he's not even showing signs that he's an NHL goalie. Right? Like these are 2 different situations, but obviously Nurse, it's like if you're overpaying a guy by $4 million, like that's a problem. Like, they could be adding like another top 4 defenseman, even a guy, a goalie, let's not even say a full tilt starting goalie, but like a guy who's like maybe even on close to Skinner's level when Skinner's playing good, like last year, you know what I mean? And then you could probably spend a little bit more money on your depth scoring. Your top 6 isn't a problem, like overall. They're not playing well right now, but that money could like really be used for this team. You know what I mean? And like they'd be in a lot better of a situation. So like that's what I was trying to get into before is like, do you think like Holland should be fired soon? Do you think they should wait on it? Like it really just depends because firing a GM and a coach is different, right? With a coach, like they're there every day coaching these guys. GM, it's like to make your mark right away. Like you got to make a move, I guess. So do you think like right now this is like the right option to potentially fire him, or do you think they should kind of wait on that?
I would say personally, I think it's the right time. If you're going to pull the trigger, you got to do it soon. Because the longer you wait, you're going to bring somebody new in who has less time compared to when the deadline is to try and free up something. So the more time you give someone, it gives them at least that opportunity to build a reputation with the other GMs around the league and work out a game plan as to what to free up and who to free it up from.
I think getting rid of him now is like the right option. I don't think they should wait any longer. I think there's no more waiting time in Edmonton. It's too bad of a start. It's not getting any better right now. Like, I think it's time for him to go. He's put this team in tough situations, man. I think he's not surrounding McDavid and Draisaitl with the right talent to win. I think it's time for him to go.
Oh, I 100% agree with you there, Mark. It's all around an ugly situation, and Ken Holland really hasn't done a single thing to fix the goaltending issue. And it was a problem. Like, it was a problem when he took over this general manager position, and like for his entire tenure there, the only thing he's done is sign Jack Campbell.
It's not even just goaltending. It's like, it's still like, it's their whole defense. I feel like still, you know what I mean? Like, yeah, they got Ekholm and got a little bit better, but it's like, it's obviously not good enough.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see with them going forward what they're going to do over this next month, and if expectations are lowered to like, wow, this really isn't a team that should be competing for a Stanley Cup. I think we should move on to our next team though, Mark. First of all, before we go there, we got to thank you, Farzy, for hopping on. It's always a pleasure seeing you, buddy. Thanks for coming on, buddy.
Pascal, I'll see you when you come upstairs.
See you, buddy.
Marky, keep it locked. You're my boy, Vandenberg. As for the rest of you, it's point to point.
Well, it seems like for the last 15 minutes there, Mark, we just ripped about the Edmonton Oilers goaltending, and I'm sort of liking this theme, so I think we move on to the Toronto Maple Leafs and just rip on their goaltending right now, because Ilya Samsonov, he still looks bad. That's the point I have in my Google Doc here that you're absolutely loving. That game against Tampa, he looked awful. I think it's time for Joseph Woll to be like given the starting net now fully. Are you on board with that, or do you still think they should have some hope in Samsonov?
I feel like I'm still under my point. Like I said, what was it, last podcast or the one before, about like, I guess they've been sort of going 50-50 since we talked about it last. Woll's looked a lot better than him for sure. To be honest though, like, he looked bad against Tampa. He did look pretty good against Boston that game. But Samsonov? I mean, like, that's pretty much like his only good game of the season. So I don't know. I guess maybe you kind of give Woll a little bit more now.
Oh, dude, I think they have to. Dude, I think they
like the games Woll even lost, like he let in 4 or 5, but I mean, who was that one game they lost to? Was it the Devils or the Kings or something? It was like 4-1. I think it was the Kings. And like, man, he had no shot on like any goal. Like I'd not blame a thing on him. Like the Leafs played terrible that game. But I mean, Woll's kind of deserve the net. Like, I mean, I guess you should probably give him more. You know what I mean?
Dude, right now with Samsonov, like that Tampa Bay, when they got lucky that they came back and that Tampa can't hold on to the lead right now.
I can't believe Woll like came in twice against Tampa this year and beat them. Like,
dude, Tampa Bay already has 4 overtime losses, which is sort of absurd this early on the season to me. But yeah, like,
there's a lot.
Woll, when he just looks better right now. It looks like the team plays more confident in front of him. Like, what I'm seeing from Samsonov right now, I'm not liking at all. He has an .855 goal or save percentage, which is awful. Like, we were just talking about Jack Campbell a bit ago. Samsonov has a worse save percentage than Jack Campbell.
Yeah, and it's like, I think the difference is like Samsonov, like Woll looks a lot calmer in that, right? The way he moves around and like he's never panicked. I think Samsonov, it's just like there's some panic in his game and his movement's not so like crisp, that I guess like even as a former goalie, it's just like, I don't know, I don't really like to see it. And I feel like even when he makes saves sometimes, like he doesn't even like know where the puck is, or like, I just feel a lot more confident when Joseph Woll's in net beside Samsonov. Woll's looked good. I think you probably, I'm going back on my statement, man. I think you got to kind of give him the net for a little bit. Like maybe play 70-30 kind of, like, you know what I mean? Like, I just don't think you can play Samsonov like 2 out of every like 10 or anything like that. Like, I think he's got to play a little bit more than that.
Yeah, I'd go anywhere between 70-30 to like 60-40. Anywhere between there right now. Really give Joseph Woll a shot to prove that he's going to be this legit guy for the Toronto Maple Leafs. Talking about the Leafs, though, it looks like they still have some other issues with them. It's their lack of depth, man. Like in that Tampa Bay game, they come back to win the game, but only one goal in that game was scored by the Toronto Maple Leafs. That wasn't their first line. They're like they look like the most bipolar team I've ever watched, man.
Didn't he?
Sorry, yes, the overtime winner. Yes, the overtime winner.
But no, I know what you mean. But like, besides their, I think for their depth, like Yarncroke's been the only guy that's been like, at least like not bad. Like he's been pretty like at least like average. I get what you mean though. Like their depth to me, like it just doesn't like scare me as it has in the past. Like, man, Bertuzzi does not look good right now. Domi doesn't look good. Reeves, it's like, yeah, he brings this other factor, but
he's not doing anything, man.
He doesn't. Yeah, he's kind of just like a negative impact in like hockey sense. I don't really understand this whole thing with Marchand and like the Liljegren injury.
Yeah,
and
I wanted
like
to talk about that.
He was saying like we discussed this internally. It was like, to me, it's like, dude, like you were brought in for situations like this when like your guys are like getting hurt or like, you know what I mean? And like responding in like a physical way, because the Leafs like haven't done that. Right. And they bring in like debatably the toughest guy in the league. Why isn't he responding? Like he's talking about how we talked about, but you didn't respond. It's like, dude, like, don't you think the onus is like mostly on him for that?
Oh, without a doubt.
Like why he was on I didn't see it, but I heard that he was on the ice 2 more times with Marchand that game. I don't know if that's true or not, but regardless, like, I feel like he's got to, like, it's not even just about going after Marchand, dude. It's like making a statement in the game. Like, it doesn't really matter who it is, dude.
It doesn't need to be Marchand. He can go after
after Brendan Carlo, dude, another defenseman. Like, you know what I mean? Yeah. Like, it's like, I don't know. Like, it doesn't seem like he's like fully doing his job right now. Like, people love him because he fights and he's strong, but like, dude, he's like, this situation's like more important than like that. Like,
well, people also love him too because of what he says in the media, but like, he's -8 right now. He hasn't really done much, like outside of that Jack-Eye fight, which Jack-Eye sort of was the instigator there. Like, it doesn't seem like he's really done that much this season. He just talks to the dude. Like, so far, he's just talked to the media, hyped up the media. The media fucking loves him right now. But he's like not doing anything else. I don't know why he's still in the lineup some of these nights.
I think that's more of like a cap thing. Like, and like them not being able to like scratch anyone and like being so tight that they're running like a 20-man roster, right? So I don't think they've had many options to scratch him, but I think it should be coming. You know what I mean? There's some games you don't really need to play him, I feel like. You know what I mean? Like, unless the other team's got a real big, tough guy in the lineup, I don't really think it's necessary for him to play.
Well, in like the Boston game, that is a game where he probably should be in the lineup. But what did he do? Like, he did nothing that night, man.
But then, to be fair, like, Lucic is injured. Like, you could still play him. There's no problem with it. But it's like the big guy he'd be going up against isn't even playing. It's like, wouldn't you prefer to have like a more effective fourth liner in the lineup?
Yeah,
like, it's like debatably the best team like in the league. I would have
way rather gone for that.
You know what I mean? Like, if Lucic is playing, it's a different story, I think. But if he's not even playing.
And you mentioned Tyler Bertuzzi as well. Like, Tyler Bertuzzi during that whole Marchand situation, it didn't look good on him either. Like, did you see the clip of him laughing on the bench?
So did that happen right after that? That like without Liljegren?
Yeah. So right after.
Yeah, I don't really get why he was like smiling and stuff. Like, it's like, dude, like, it doesn't really matter if you like played with him and know him and shit. Like, bro, realistically, you play with him for what, less than half a season, and like, bro, he's your rival, and he's like one of your rivals now, dude. Like, you know what I mean? Guys move on from teammates all the time. Like, just didn't really feel like he was like in like the hockey mode in that moment, you know? He was more about like the way Brad Marchand like does like kind of like, I guess, ratty things. Like, you know what I mean? It just felt like he was kind of like smirking because of that. Like, what
That
did you
whole
think about the whole
situation.
Liljegren thing, dude? Like, did you think that was like dirty at all? Or like I don't know. Like, it's so weird to me. Like, it's just like, I feel like if it wasn't Marchand, like we wouldn't really be talking about it, but like, I don't know. Like, it was just,
No, I completely agree with you there. I don't think it was dirty. It just looked bad. Because at the end of the day, what happened is it's two players going into the corner and they're fighting for position. They're fighting for position for the puck battle that's about to happen, right? So they go to engage each other with their sticks. That's what happens.
yeah, they like lock sticks
And
first,
then
right?
Liljegren, the way he sort of comes over to stop, he brings his foot over and like catches Marchand's skate, right?
Yeah, and like, didn't he stop? Like his feet were like really wide, like far apart.
Yeah, his feet were really far apart, but then to come stop, he brings his one foot in closer and sort of catches the toe there of Marchand's stick. I think, yeah, you can call. I think you do call a 2-minute tripping penalty on there because at the end of the day, your stick is in a player's feet, which is can be a dangerous position. But for some of the Leafs fans saying that that should have been a couple games or like suspension worthy, I think that's insane.
Yeah, I don't know
But
what
then,
keeps talking about, man.
but then for the Leafs, it's like you we all have the benefit of watching the replays, watching in slow motion at home. For the Leafs, you see a top four defenseman get taken down going to the boards by Brand Marchand, who everybody fucking despises. Like, how is Marchand skating by the bench and Ryan Reeves is the only guy fucking yapping at him? You have Tyler Bertuzzi laughing. Like, dude, on that, like, you gotta have like 4 or 5 guys on the bench there fucking giving it to Marchand, saying, like, we're gonna make your night fucking miserable because of what you just did. Didn't happen. It honestly looked embarrassing on the Leafs. Because if you can, like, if you're gonna do that to Liljegren and they're not gonna respond, like, next game, are you gonna just be following Matthews around the ice the whole night, giving him hell?
Yeah, that's what I mean, man. That's just something that I honestly thought that maybe have changed with the Leafs this year is bringing in all these guys. Situations like this, you have like all of them kind of chirping, yapping. You know what I mean? Maybe gets a couple more guys on the team even involved in it too. You know, but like it doesn't really seem like it's happening at all. It doesn't seem to be any change in it whatsoever. And like their
So,
depth, just it hasn't been great. Like even just scoring wise, right? Like Camp, Reeves, Gregor, Domi, Bertuzzi now. Like they're not scoring. So I mean, their top guys are playing great. You know what I mean? They're still above 500. They're still in a good spot right now. Their top guys have been great. They got to get their depth going because these top guys can't come out every single night. You know what I mean?
dude, Matthews has 3 hat-tricks so far this season. Like,
Yeah, he's been awesome. He's been
guy,
on
this
the
guy, this guy can't do this for 82 games, and if he does, then like, holy fuck, I think I think the Leafs should be paying him 15 million a year instead of 13. Just run 3 lines next season, because that's basically what they're doing right now. I think we should move on to Western Canadian teams. Calgary Flames. Big story out there. Jonathan Huberdeau, he was benched for the third period in the Flames 4-2 win over the Nashville Predators. So far this season, he only has 6 points in 12 games. It's the first year of his 8-year, $84 million extension. He was in the media saying it was humiliating and it wasn't easy being benched. Head coach Ryan Huska was just basically saying he just had an off night. That's why we benched him for the third period. What do you think the Flames got to do with him, man? Because it's looking like an ugly
What can you
scenario.
do?
Yeah.
What can you do besides just keep playing him and try to make it work? No one's taking this contract on.
He's in the
Like, how
first
do
year of an
you
eight.
feel, dude? You're the Flames fan. Like, what do you think's gonna happen? Like, do you think this is like, do you think this is the new him now? Like,
I don't think this is new to him, but I don't think we're ever going to see what he was that last year in Florida, right?
so a
I
lot
think
of people think that like his heart was like left in Florida.
without a doubt it was.
You know,
Without a
like
doubt.
I think that too. You could just tell by the reaction he gave like Bill Zito when he was called and told that he was traded. Um, it's tough though because like it's like as much as tough as it is, I'm sure it's just like guys get traded all the time, right? And they find a way to just get through it, even though it sucks. But I don't know, man. I kind of hope this isn't the end for him. Like, I don't want him to be the guy who's labeled as the worst contract in the NHL. Like him a lot more, and I think he's like a better player than that for sure. But this is a tough look for him, man. Getting benched, he looked pretty devastated on the bench, man.
I think realistically for Huberdeau, over the remainder of this contract, if he can be like a 70 to 85 point getter, like I'd be happy with that. Because the other thing is like, with the length of this contract and how much the cap could go up over the next 7-8 years, right? Like by year 6 of this contract, the 10.5 that he's making could be like what somebody right now who's making 8.5, 9 is making, and then it's not hurting the Flames as much. But yeah, for me, it's just if you're the Flames, try to do what you can do to get him back to what he was at the end of his years in Florida, because as you said, nobody's taken on this contract. He's not going anywhere. It's just really figuring out what you can do. I don't think the Flames are going to be competing for the next couple of years. I think they should go into not a rebuild, but go into like a retooling, sort of do what Dallas did there, where you go out, you try to draft well, you have guys at the end of their careers who are good players in their prime mixed with up and coming players who are entering their prime. And at that point, maybe the Flames will be a stellar team. But right now it's just not happening with them.
So like, what do you think they should do with some of these UFAs? Like, would you just kind of see what's out there now? But would you say like waiting to the deadline with a couple of them like is a better option just for like maybe teams getting like really desperate? You know what I mean? Or do you think it's better to maybe sell higher now, saying that like teams could get them for like a longer period of time?
So yeah, I'd trade our UFAs.
So like that's Tanev, that's Zadorov,
Hannafin,
that's Hannafin, that's Lindholm as well. Dubé, I think he's an RFA, isn't he?
He's an RFA.
Yeah, so I mean that's a lot of guys for them to potentially move out, and then I would see what's out there for Vladar as well, so you can bring up Wolf. Obviously,
I would too.
So like, how you liking like Connor Zary so far? Like he's been a kind of a little nice bright spot for the Flames, I feel like, the last couple games.
Honestly, I haven't been able to see too much of him.
I watched a little bit of him play, and he looked pretty good out there, man. He was playing with Kadri, and like I've seen Kadri's like impact in the game the last couple games has been getting better. He scored like in the first period that he played this season too. So I mean, at least it's a little bit of a bright spot. You know what I mean? Coronado's like getting off to a little bit of a slow start as a rookie, but I mean, it's just kind of the growing pains and getting used to the game. I feel like Pelletier is going to be back in a couple months too. So like you still got like some young guys, you know what I mean? Even if you start trading some guys away, that there's something to be like excited for. I feel like Jeremy Poirier looks like he's been like one of the best defensemen in the AHL this season too. So there's a guy like you could potentially call up, you know what I mean? He's going to be involved in the Flames in the future as well.
Yeah, that's the thing about Connor Zary that I'm loving right now is the fact that he's playing. Because last year, like if we still had last year's regime in, he wouldn't be playing right now. He'd still be down in the AHL. He'd be Matthew Phillips playing in the AHL till the guy's 24, which was
who's looking really good in Washington this year too.
Yeah, like I don't know why he's there. He should be in Calgary, but
yeah.
But like, yeah, the players with the Flames right now, they're getting a shot while they're letting the kids play, which I'm loving because you just mentioned a bunch of them. And if we can get those guys in the lineup, if we can have like honestly, dude, like if we can have 2 first-round picks in this year's draft, one of which is like a top 10 pick, like I think it could be a really quick turnaround for the Flames.
Yeah, I don't think it necessarily is like a long rebuild. I think the only thing that's going to be like a trouble, just because they're hard to find, is if you do trade Lindholm, kind of getting to replace that 1C, I think may be a little bit of an issue. But that could be also, you could somehow get in like this year's draft if
if you're bad enough
10, right? Like there's options for this team, and like we said, they have a really good goalie. Like Poirier, he's probably good enough to play in the NHL right now, but it doesn't make sense to have him there because it's
Who's
no
he
use
gonna
having him
play
on the bottom
over?
pair,
Yeah.
in my opinion. So, but like if you're getting rid of Hannafin and someone else, he can jump into the top 4 spot even for the rest of the season or something like that. You know what I mean? But I agree with you. I don't think this is necessarily like a long rebuild for the Calgary Flames, even if they trade all the guys, the UFAs we just talked about before. I think you're looking at some pretty nice returns. Dude, I wouldn't be surprised if you get 3 first-round picks in this year's draft. I think Hannafin can definitely fetch one, and Lindholm can fetch one.
I think Lindholm could fetch one. I think Hannafin for sure could fetch one.
Or
And I
you can
think
go 2 this year, 2 next year, something like that, depending the way what team you're going with if they have a first. But I don't think Calgary's in the worst position, man. But I think taking a little bit step back is the right decision for this team.
the one trade I was actually like would love to see, this could be the most ridiculous trade ever, but Ken Johnson so far in Columbus this season, like he was healthy scratched at the beginning of the year, right? It came out, I think, earlier this week that changed his agent, and now he's with the same agent that Pierre-Luc Dubois had. So I saw like there's some speculation there, like, oh, like would he maybe request a trade at some point? Because he's on the last year of his entry level, right?
Yeah.
So, but if he does request a trade, dude, like I would love to go out, get him get Kent Johnson for Elias Lindholm.
I think
Like
the
just do a
problem with that
1-for-1
would be
trade
getting
there.
Lindholm to re-sign, right? I don't think Columbus is looking at that
Yeah.
trade unless he's signing an extension with them. But I mean, it would be a great ad for Calgary. Like I think with Johnson, it's like he got sent down because he's not like, I don't really think he's paying a lot of attention to defense, really. And he's just not kind of being a good, well-rounded player right now. So I think they want to send him down to kind of learn those things, I guess, because he was put up 40 points last year, man. Like he's not a bad player at all.
Yeah.
I don't know. I wonder if he's just someone who's like now Fantilli's there. He just like thinks that 1C isn't like a option for him on that team, you know, and down the line. It'd be interesting though for them to go out and get a guy like him.
Well, and Columbus is
Even if it's not a Lindholm, like what if you accumulate a lot of like picks and like from trading these guys and you go out and even spend a first to get them? Like
yeah,
I feel like
I do that. I'd do that without a doubt. The only
because
thing is
you have a guy you know is already like NHL ready. He's young. You just got to develop him a bit more.
the only reason I was saying Lindholm was because with Columbus right now, like I think Columbus sort of wants to get to winning, right? Especially Kekalainen, like after the whole Babcock situation, like who knows how much of a hot seat he's on if they don't make the playoffs or like get a top 5,
I don't think the
top
trade
10
is like
pick.
very unrealistic or anything. I just think it has a huge. I just don't think Columbus does it unless like he's committing to an extension because he's an expiring UFA, right? Like I don't think it makes a lot of sense unless he's committing to their team.
Oh yeah,
But like, dude, who knows? He like imagine if he's like, hey, I can go play with Gaudreau again. You know, like I don't know, it could happen.
I think we should make our way out to the nation's capital, Ottawa Senators. Not gonna lie, dude, thinking about it right now, there's a lot of drama going on in the NHL. I'm loving this. But the Ottawa Senators, they're 4-6-0 right now, 8th in the Atlantic Division. Yeah, that's last place in the Atlantic. Their fans, man, they are pissed. They all want head coach DJ Smith. They want him gone, dude. After the 6-4 loss to the Tampa Bay Lightning the other night, Brady Tkachuk. Well, first of all, fans were basically booing the team. And then afterwards, after the game, Brady Tkachuk called out the fans for all the booing. Dude, in Ottawa, it looks terrible right now. My biggest worry is we've seen it in past years with Ottawa where their attendance has gone through the shitter. Like, could we see, like, are we going to see this? Should we be worried about that Ottawa's fans might just stop showing up to games with, A, the way the team's not, like, winning games, and then also, B, now you have players basically calling out fans?
I don't know. It's kind of a tough question because I mean, like, it's not like I guess they're more excited at this point for like the core they have and stuff like that and like what it can be. But I don't know. Like it feels like they're convinced that like it's on the coach. And to be honest with you, like I don't think they're crazy for thinking it. Like I think he should. I would never chant fire DJ or anything or like anything along those lines if it was Montreal related, but I don't disagree with them. I think he should be gone. I think he's had a long enough leash at this point, and he hasn't really done much. Like they haven't really gotten much better, I think. You know what I mean? Considering like the talent that's been on their team. Like, yeah, he's helped develop a couple guys, I guess, but I think it's just time for a new coach for them personally.
Dude, when you look at this roster and the way it's put together, like this should be a playoff team. I don't care how fucking strong the Eastern Conference or the Atlantic Division is this year.
You
Like,
really think so though? Like,
oh yeah.
really? Like, I don't know, man. Like, it's like, do you think they're like a top 3 team in the Atlantic, like roster wise? Or like more of like a wild card team?
I think you maybe a third, but more realistically, like a wild card team.
I just think that like they have a great top 6. I just think there's still some question marks around their team though. Like it's just like
they have a great top 6 that on them. You look at their back end, you have Jake Sanderson, you have Shabbat, and then you go out and you get a Chikrin last year. Like they got a pretty good defensive core as well, man. I think that the Ottawa Senators like should be really competing for a playoff spot where they're at right now. And the fact that they're not, I think fans have like waited long enough.
So you're more making the case that like they're good enough, they should be better than this. Like it's on kind of on the coach.
Oh yeah, like every year with DJ Smith, they get off to a slow start. Like look at what happened last season, right? They get off to a terrible start. Then like sort of mid-season, they start to look good. They sort of make a little bit of a push at the end of the season. But it's like last year, if they didn't get off to that slow of a start, could we have seen them like as that last wild card team in?
Well, I don't think they've ever been under a good start since Smith's been coaching them. I saw the stats. I don't think they've had more than 7 wins in their first 20 games ever since he's started coaching the team. So I think that's been a huge problem for them too, right? Like you said, a better start. Like they could have been in that wild card spot, but I don't know, man. I just feel like there's still a lot of question marks around this team, consider like in their like bottom 6 depth, and like they have those good defensemen. I don't know. They still lack like a big physical guy back there. I feel like their goaltending, it's probably like above league average, I would say, but it's nothing like spectacular, right? I don't know. Like they're a team where it's like I wouldn't be surprised they make the playoffs, and I wouldn't be surprised they don't make the playoffs. Like I didn't put them in this year, but I don't really think like the way they've been playing recently is like their full potential kind of, but they do have some injuries too right now, right? Like Shabbat's out, Brandstrom's out. Like it's tough, man. Ridley Gregg's out now. They don't even have Pinto. Like,
okay, so let me ask you: Senators or Red Wings? Who do you think has the better roster?
probably the Senators.
See, like, so if I'm an Ottawa
But
fan,
I don't really think Detroit's a playoff team, though.
But the thing is, like, they're playing like it, though. You know what I mean? It's like for Ottawa, they're a team that like could be in the playoffs, but like they're not. Like they don't look like it right now. So if I'm a fan sitting at home and watching that, like I'm after 7 years of missing the playoffs too, like I'd be pissed off, man.
I mean, I don't really think that they like don't have a reason to be pissed off. It's just like I don't know if they're like a bona fide like playoff team, I guess. Like I think they're just mad because like 2 years ago it felt like this rebuild was like leaning towards like the playoffs. And now they haven't really been that close, you know what I mean?
So okay, I'm looking at the standings right now for the Eastern Conference. Here's the teams that I would without a doubt have as a better roster construction than the Ottawa Senators. So Boston Bruins, Tampa Bay Lightning, Toronto Maple Leafs, of course, right? And then when I go, and then I think like Red Wings, Panthers, Sabres, you can all have an argument that Ottawa is constructed better than them. Panthers, maybe not as much so. And then looking at the Metro, like Devils, Hurricanes, Rangers are the only 3 teams I really think in the Metro that have better rosters than the Senators. You know what I mean? So it's
I
like,
mean, I guess you're right. I feel like Florida, they just came off a cup run, right? Like they have some different pieces, but they're not that much different than their cup run, right? Like, I don't know. I kind of get what you're saying, but it's like, just feel like they're more of like a wild card team, if anything, than just besides than the top three, you know?
see,
But at
like,
the same time, it's like,
yeah,
I don't know, man. Like I feel like Buffalo like might be better.
yeah, I could have that argument as well. But I think just with
They're
Ottawa, it's just
deeper, I
like,
think. Yeah.
I
I
think
don't
just with Ottawa though, it's like they're just like they're eighth right now in the Atlantic. It's like I think it'd be one thing if you're where the Panthers are, where you're in the middle of the Atlantic right now, but it's just the fact that like you're doing worse than like not to shit on Montreal because they've had a phenomenal start to the season, but it's like the Ottawa Senators should not be below in the standings than the Montreal Canadiens.
No, not at all. Especially it's like it's a rival for them too, right? Like
Yeah.
this isn't a good look for Ottawa whatsoever. Like I said, like I think Montreal's the worst team in this division for sure by the end of the year. Ottawa, it's tough. I think you got to fire the coach, change things up. There's not a lot of patience left, I think, even though this core is still very young and it's like they got a lot of potential, but you got to make the playoffs at some point, man. Like,
Gotta make the playoffs. Just gotta see that improvement, which is like for the
you got
last
to get
two,
that
three
experience
seasons.
before they're
Yeah.
all too older, you know? Like,
Well, it looks like it could get worse, honestly, for the Ottawa Senators. In the next couple weeks, they go over to Sweden to play 2 games on November 16th and the 18th. And we all know how hard that's been on NHL teams in previous seasons going over and playing those mid-season games in a whole other continent. I think we should move back out west, though. Go to the best Canadian team so far this season, the Vancouver Canucks. They have a 9-2 start to the season. Man, they're looking like a wagon so far early on. The big name, though, I think that's really, really playing amazing so far is Quinn Hughes. He leads the NHL right now in plus minus with a plus 16, and he has 20 points through 12 games played. This guy looks phenomenal. I'm starting to be on the Vancouver Canucks bandwagon. I don't really see this team falling off too much as the season goes on, to be honest. Do you think they're like gonna have a fall off or no?
like I'm not. I don't know if they're gonna like continue this trend of like the record they have, but I feel like they're definitely probably gonna end up finishing top three in their division at this point. Um,
Oh yeah.
I don't know why. Like I didn't put them in the playoffs, but I had this like thought in my mind like all summer that they were gonna be kind of be this team that everyone thinks is like not that good, and they're gonna end up being really good. Um, they're looking good, man. Like they beat the Oilers 3 times so far this season now. Their stars are playing like stars. JT Miller's looking a heck of a lot better too than he has like even last year. They're getting like some depth scoring. Their defense has obviously been a huge concern for them over the years, right? Like minus Quinn Hughes, it's kind of just been like a complete drop off to the next guy, right? But they've got a nice guy in Philip Hronik to like kind of complement him on that first pair. He's pretty physical too, like defensive minded, but he's still like averaging a point per game so far this year. And then they brought in like guys, Ian Cole, Carson Soucy. Those guys are bigger guys. Defensive minded as well. You know what I mean? I think that's kind of what Vancouver needed. And then you got Thatcher Demko playing out of this world. So, I mean, it's been a really great start for the Canucks. I don't really see them falling off too much, to be quite honest with you. Definitely wish I picked them going in the playoffs this year.
Damn, dude, I called season previews. I was saying the Vancouver Canucks were the most mid team I've ever seen in my life, and now I'm hopping on the fucking bandwagon, dude. Like starting to look bipolar like the Toronto Maple Leafs. But yeah, no, I don't think this team's like I do see them falling off a little bit, not going 18-4 through their next 10 games, but this team is going to be a team that's going to be finishing top 3 in the Pacific. Seattle's not going to be there. The Flames aren't going to be there. Like Oilers have a lot of catching up to do right now. Like the
Yeah, and like
Canucks are
even like
looking.
LA's looking nice too, man. Like imagine
Yeah,
being 7-2-2 and you're third in your division. Like
yeah, it's a tough division, man.
You said it. The hardest division in the NHL preseason.
That in the Atlantic, the Ottawa
Give yourself
Senators
some
in
credit.
eighth in the Atlantic. Oh, I'll say I know my divisions. Other than that, it's not looking too good. I know what division Frederik Andersen plays in. He plays in the Metro division for the Carolina Hurricanes. Sort of rough news with Freddie Andersen though. He's out indefinitely with a medical issue. It was revealed that Andersen, he has a blood clotting issue that was discovered during a recent medical testing. It's a pretty rough loss for the Hurricanes. But do you think this third goaltender, I can't pronounce his name to save my life, so do you think Kochekov, like how much help do you think that's going to be just having this third goaltender in your system and being able to bring him up?
I think it's going to be like really good for them, like in their system, obviously having like a third guy who's played 30 NHL games so far in his career, right? And he was pretty solid last year as well. I don't know if you saw, but they're signing Halak to like a free agent tryout.
That's interesting.
So, apparently, like they were talking to him even before they knew about this issue and were considering signing him anyway. And then they were going to leave Kochekov like in the minors. It's very weird, their goalie situation in general, because Kochekov is like this guy who's got a lot of experience, right? He's making $2 million now, and they got him in on assignment in the minors, and they got Ronta and Anderson back in the NHL like they did last year. It just seems like they don't really have full confidence in this kid, to be quite honest. I'm curious to see if they're going to end up signing Halak or not, or if they're going to trust for him to be the backup. But most importantly, like, honestly, I've actually always been like a really big fan of Freddie. I honestly thought that maybe in the past like decade or so, he's probably had like the best stretch of goaltending the Leafs have gotten, at least for the first couple of years that he was in Toronto. I think he's a really solid goalie, and I kind of hope that he does. I hope that he responds from this, and I hope that he's okay. Like, I want to see him play again, to be quite honest with you. He's shown like flashes where he's been a really good goalie in this league, and I hope this really isn't the end for him, and like that he's able to fully recover and like be healthy. Because it's a huge loss for the Hurricanes, man. Like, no disrespect to like Antti Raanta, but like he's never been like a starting goalie or anything in the NHL. Like, he's shown flashes of being a really good backup, and Freddie has had that experience as a starting goalie, right? Even though he's very injury prone and he doesn't play as much as you'd probably want him to. But like I said, I just hope Freddie ends up being okay. It really sucks for him, sucks for the Canes, but they do have options, man. This Kochekov kid has been pretty good for most of his career so far. And I mean, Ronta's been pretty good as well. I don't know if you just kind of rotate him at this point, but you got to just kind of figure it on the fly, see what works, because there's no timetable for Freddie's return at this point.
Yeah, I think having their goaltending situations going to help them out so much here. And then just also the fact that they're such a great team, especially defensively and in their own end, that you can throw Ranta or this Kochekov guy in net and you're not absolutely freaking out, where it's like some of these other top teams in the leagues like Edmonton or Toronto, it's like you do have a goaltending injury like this, you're freaking the fuck out. We got to give some love to the Anaheim Ducks though, man. Not only because of those purple jerseys that they've worn a couple times this season, because those are beautiful, but they're looking like a pretty decent team so far to start the season. Right now in the Pacific Division, they sit fourth with a 7-5 record. I see him
in the first wild card spot right now, man.
Yeah, I see him falling off personally, but I think this rebuild is towards the end of the process. Leo Carlson, dude, I like this kid a lot, man.
He's really good.
Yeah, like the top three from this draft class, like
they all look like they're going to be complete studs, in my opinion.
They all look like they would have, like they all for sure would have been number one picks in the previous years.
Yeah, absolutely.
Draft. Not shitting on Slav or anything, but and then like in Lafreniere's draft, they all would have been all first overall picks there probably. Dude, they're looking good, and there's some Michkov kid too. Played for Ottawa last year in the O. Like, dude, he's looking pretty good as well.
Michkov's the guy from Russia.
Minnikov or whatever.
Oh, Minyukov.
Yeah, Minnikov. Dude, the Russian
Michkov's the Russian kid who went to Philly in the draft last year.
Dude, I know it's a Russian name, buddy.
He played in Saginaw before Ottawa last year, and
Yeah.
then got traded there to deadline. He's sick, man. He had like 25 goals as a D-man in the O last year. He's looking pretty nice too for the Ducks so far this year, up there in rookie points. So I mean, they seem to have a stud in him. Obviously, got Drysdale back there too. He's been injured this season, which sucks. That guy just cannot get rid of the injury bug. But I mean, look, dude, like Vetrano's been sick. McTavish.
Yeah,
They've been
dude,
at
McTavish,
Killorn and they've been
don't get me
winning. Like
going.
Killorn's played a couple games.
Dude, I dropped Phil Vetrano in fantasy. Guy drops 2 hat tricks like right afterwards. I'm fucking kicking myself in the head. I'm like, oh, Mason McTavish hasn't been picked up. Go pick him up. He's just been unbelievable. So that's making up for the Vetrano loss a little bit.
And
But
they've
yeah,
been
no,
getting
this-
awesome goaltending too from like Gibson and Lucas Dostel. I think just getting a couple vets back there on D2 and like Labushkin and Radko Gudas has kind of like helped their identity a little bit too, right? I feel like they kind of lacked an identity last year and that's why they were so bad, but they've kind of got something more to play for this year. I think the most surprising thing out of this all though, man, is like how poor Trevor Zegras has been playing. Like he's got like 3 points this season or something.
Well, he's TikTok famous now, man. He's a changed guy, dating one of the D'Amelio sisters. Don't
I
know which
know.
one, but
Well, I mean, do you feel like that this whole contract thing like got to his head or like what?
I hope not, because it's like you thought you were worth a lot more than you were. So it's like sort of come out and prove it, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
over
he's not
over
proven
this
it so far.
contract, come out and prove that they should have paid you this much, and they're really gonna miss out because when they're gonna have to pay you after this next deal, you're gonna be doing what Rasmus Dahlin did, where it completely works out in your benefit. But right now, it's looking like we are only 10 games into this contract, so but it's not looking too great for him, where he was sort of betting on himself. I think we should move on though. Let's do our way too early award winners. 10 games in, who are given all the big league awards to. Let's start off with the Vezina. Mark, I'll let you go first here. Who do you have winning the Vezina right now?
So I mean, there's been actually a lot of good goaltenders so far this season. Some guys that have just really came out and like not been too much of a surprise, but I feel like their numbers of like how good they've been has been really good and it's quite surprising. We were just talking about the Vancouver Canucks, man. I think I'd be going with Thatcher Demko at this point. This guy's been playing like out of his mind. I feel like he was injured last year. Obviously, when he came back from that injury, he looked a heck of a lot better than he did earlier in the season. And I feel like that earlier stretch in last season's been like kind of the only point in his career where he's not been so great of a goalie. And he's been like an elite goalie besides that his entire career. I'd be going with Demko right now in Vancouver because, like I said, they got better defense. They're winning a lot of games, but he's been bailing them out a lot. So I think so far, almost a month into the season, he's been the best goalie in the league.
Yeah, I had Demko down as well. The other guy I want to give a shout out to, though, because he's been looking really good so far this year, is Igor Shesterkin. Played 8 games, 6 wins. He's a .236 goals against average and a .913 save percentage. He's looked really good, and of course, I think he's going to keep this up all season. Where with Demko, like the numbers Demko has right now is absolutely ridiculous, and I don't know if it's going to be possible to stay like where he's at right now. I still think he'll be phenomenal going forward, but just to stay where he's at right now with the numbers he has, it's gonna be hard. But yeah, I had Demko winning it as well. For the Hart, this is a hard one too because you have a lot of players playing really good early on and really leading to some team success for the teams that they play for. But for the Hart, I got Austin Matthews. Guy is 13 goals through 12 games. I think that right there says it all. You take this guy off of the Leafs. Like, honestly, dude, if Austin Matthews wasn't on the Leafs, they would have lost 3 more games than what they have so far. Because all 3 games that he scored hat tricks in, the Leafs would be losing those games if he wasn't on this team.
I mean, and that's kind of like the clear like definition of like the Hart Trophy, right?
Yeah.
Being most valuable to your team. I personally go with Matthews too. My very close second though, I think would be Jack Hughes. I think he's been injured the last couple games, but like obviously it's not long term or anything like that. I'd give it to Matthews right now, but if you said Hughes at the same time, like I really wouldn't disagree with you. I think he's just been awesome as well.
Honestly, I was looking at this and I was gonna go with Jack Hughes, but just this injury with him, I had to lean Matthews' way because Matthews is playing the games. And dude, he's at a goal per game. Like this guy could actually score 70 this year. It's not
It's
like
not
completely out
impossible.
of the realm. Let's move on to the Norse. Speaking of Jack Hughes, I got his brother here, Quinn Hughes, new captain of the Vancouver Canucks. We were talking about it earlier in the podcast. Leads the league in plus minus at plus 16, but he also leads defenseman in scoring with 20 points through 12 games. He's doing it all right now on both ends of the ice. He's putting up those points. He's looking great defensively. He's leading that first power play unit. He's leading the team. That's why I got to go with Quinn Hughes right now. Who do you have though?
Man, honestly, like not to just be on the same side as you, but it's kind of hard to like not pick him. Like he's almost averaging 2 points a game. Like he's barely been on the ice for like any goals against at this point. Like his defensive game hasn't always been the strongest, but it seems like it's taking another like going up to another level this season. So not just to pick the same as you, but I would go with Quinn Hughes so far this season. Like I don't really think that anyone's been better than him.
So I think for this next one, since we've been on topic for all of them, I think we're gonna be the pretty same here. Jack Adams Award. I have Rick Tocchet. What he's done with Vancouver, sort of changing this team from what they were last season to this season with like pretty much the same core. I think he's done a great job. Like, dude, JT Miller looks phenomenal. Where in previous season it looks like JT Miller rather be 1,000 different places than at the rink. So
And
I
when
have
they
to go with
had
Rick
that one
Tocchet
issue
here.
with him this year, like he benched him and then he came out and scored. Like
Yeah,
he's handling him properly too, right? So
and dude, Pedersen's looked great so far too. So I got to go with Tocchet here. I don't know if we're gonna be the same, but do you have Tocchet winning the Jack Adams
I
or?
mean, like he's definitely like a great pick. I had one other guy in mind though, and I feel like I don't know if you can make the case as much for as Talkett, but I'm going with Greg Cronin in Anaheim, dude. I
Yeah,
mean, we're talking about a team that's in a playoff spot right now and was looking for Connor Bedard in the draft lottery last year. So, I mean, the improvements he's made with his Anaheim Ducks team, especially coming in his first season, I think at least at this point, you could definitely give it to Talkett. But I mean, I think Cronin would be in the discussion too for this trophy right now.
yeah, that's another good pick. The only thing with Anaheim though is I see them falling off a little bit here as the season goes
Yeah.
on. Where with Vancouver, I think they're going to be a playoff team for sure. We'll go on to the last one. It's the Calder, dude. I think this has to be the most Calder, like the most stacked Calder race we've had probably in the past 10 years. Like looking sort of at stats right now and everything, like you could probably give it to like 7 or 8 different guys and really make a strong argument for each and every one of those guys. We'll start off with you though. Who do you have winning the Calder?
So I get your point. There's a lot of guys that have a lot of points, but no one's kind of doing what this guy is. I'm still going with the number one overall pick last year in Connor Bedard. The reason I'm going with him is he's already the best forward on his team. He's playing the most minutes out of any of these guys. He has the most responsibility going up against the top guys night in and night out. And honestly, he's looked really good so far. He doesn't have as many points as the guys that are currently leading for rookies, but I think just because of like I said, the responsibility he's had to deal with being that number one center right off the bat and still producing 5 goals on the season already, I'm going with Connor Bedard for the Calder.
Yeah, I'm going with Connor Bedard as well. I got to give a shout out though to Logan Cooley. He's looked phenomenal so far this season. They're playing really, really good as well. But yeah, Connor Bedard, he's, as you said, he's the best player on his team. Where with all these other guys, they're not the
They're
best.
secondary guys right now, right?
Yeah,
Dude, even like a guy like Bobby Brink in Philly, he's looking quite nice. Like Minchikov in Anaheim, like
well,
Fantilli, Carlson, these guys are looking good, man.
to really tell you how bad of a team Chicago is, and like how impressive it is that Connor Bedard is like playing how he is on this team. Bobby Brink, he's a +1. Minchikov in Anaheim, he's +5. Logan Cooley, +1. Luke Evangelista, he's even right now. Marco Rossi +1, Matthew Patois +4, Matthew Nyes +5, Luke Hughes -1. You go to Connor Bedard -8, just because of how bad Chicago is. So it's like all these other rookies that are sort of putting up similar points to Bedard, they're plus minus, like they're playing on better teams.
And they're
So,
surrounded by better players as well.
yeah. It's definitely going to be interesting though as the season goes on with this Calder race. Because like, man, it is those players I just named off there. Like those are all guys that could win the Calder, and like you
It's
wouldn't.
a young
be
man's
like,
league now,
holy.
man. These kids are coming in and being so impactful right away. After spending some time in the A or junior, it's crazy like how good they can be like right away.
Yeah, it's definitely impressive, and just how good some of these teams are with like such a young cores and the success that they're having, like Anaheim. I think we covered a fair bit though this week. We covered a lot more teams than we usually do, honestly, which I was sort of liking, Mark. I know you were talking to me at one point mid podcast saying that we were absolutely loving the guests coming on. So I think we're going to keep that up going forward for the rest of the season. Try to get at least one guest on per episode and try to have them from all different teams around the NHL. So it's not just one fan base we're hearing from. But that's everything we're going to be talking about today. This is going to be released on Sunday. We'll be back next week. You've been listening to Point NHL Recap Show. Thanks for tuning in.